So we're here to talk about fundraising and COVID-19. Where do we go from here? The reason why we put this seminar together was we heard from a lot of you that you are out there a little bit floundering and not exactly sure what you should be doing this type of an environment, this type of situation. So we want to address that a little bit, give you some ideas, but part of that process is to remember that we're all part of community. And this is our little PledgeMine community. Certainly it's not your only community out there, but we all kind of share the same frustrations, the same challenges together. And so we can help each other out by openly sharing what's working for us, what's not working, asking our questions and things like that. So we really want this to be more of an informal kind of group share time, as opposed to Bethany and I just being lecturing you on what we think you should do. So we'll go forward and we'll jump into it, and hopefully we'll have a great conversation, a great opportunity to share together. So, okay, so to begin with, hang on one second, let's see if we can get the slides to advance. All right, so we're going to talk about direct mail best practices during COVID-19. A lot of the slides that I'm going to talk to you about come from an article that Eric Strife, who works for American Philanthropy, wrote just last week. And I contacted Eric and asked him if it was okay for me to share some of his slides and some of his points. And he said absolutely, and wishes he could even be part of the conversation with us here. But I'll try to do the best job I can of sharing some of his ideas and interjecting some of my own as well. So the bottom line is, a lot of you have asked us, should I be continuing to do my communication with my donors, or should I just put my whole program on pause? And the short answer is you need to be continuing your communication. Regardless of the crisis around us, nonprofits must continue to communicate with their constituents and continue to fundraise. Direct mail continues to be one of the most effective ways for you to stay in touch. And historically, if you look at periods of our nation's history where we've gone through similar crises like this, the organizations that forge ahead during a crisis are much more successful than those that put pause onto their programs in the long run. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is in the case. So before we do that, I want to make up some points and kind of back up that statement as to why that is the case. So this is a slide that came from my millennial presentation that I did for a number of case conferences last year. And basically what it's showing here is, this is the proportion of the different generational groups for the US population as of today. 31% are millennials. They're the largest group out there right now. 28% are Gen Xers. We've got boomers. We've got at 30%, and we've got the matures at 11%. So about 41% of our file is over the age of 55, 56, that range. That is not what your current donor database is out there. Currently, about 61%, or a 20% difference, of your current files are in these older groups out here. Why does that matter in the course of our conversation as it relates to COVID-19? Hang on one second. We'll get you the slide. Your donors are disproportionately older than the general public. And while we don't have hard data on this yet, it's too early to tell, it is likely that the people who are currently out of work, those that are furloughed and maybe laid off, are disproportionately younger. So if your argument is, I don't want to continue asking my donor file for money because I feel like largely they are in just as bad a shape because they've either lost their jobs or something along those lines. While that could potentially be the case, it's probably not likely to be the case. Most of your donors are in that older group, They're mostly, probably the large percentage of them are still working, obviously working from home, and they want to be able to find a way that they can help. Now, that being said, you have to be sensitive in your language, and we'll talk about that later here in a little bit. So you want to use phrases like, if you're able to. So in other words, you can't assume that your donor file is working as fine and all along those lines, but you have to be sensitive to the fact that a good percentage of them may be out of work and may be hurting themselves in that case. So a large percentage of people are at home, and direct mail continues to, more than ever, should be utilized as a primary fundraising and communication channel. And the reason for that is, even during the best times, email open rates are consistently below 20%. And so even now, where we're even being bombarded even more so with digital communications, direct mail continues to be an effective way to reach people in their homes. But I'm not saying you give up on your email communication. Certainly you want to do those things, but you should be backing up your digital communications with physical direct mail type communications, or vice versa, backing up your direct mail with email types of communications.
Hey, John, can I interject with a question I got? Molly Whitcomb is asking, aren't most older donors likely to just have taken a hit on their retirement funds with the stock market volatility?
Absolutely, that is the case. We'll see that bounce back. And I think that would definitely make a difference in terms of major donor activities and things like that. But when you're talking about your general fund, your annual fund type activities, the average gift is probably not something that people are going to be affected by based on their retirement account and things like that. But once again, you need to be very sensitive to that fact and know that people are feeling that pain as well. So the bottom, hopefully that answered your questions, Molly. Stay connected. During this time of social isolation, your core constituents want to feel a part of your community. We've talked a little bit about our PledgeMine community. You have your own communities in your institutions there as well. So who are your core constituents? Well, this should be pretty obvious, but your active donors, your multi-year donors, your monthly sustainer donors, your special giving groups out there, these are the people you want to be communicating with on a very regular basis. Those other groups out there, like your Libunts and your Cybunts and your sporadic donors, maybe less so, and we'll talk about some communication attempts that you can do in terms of that group as well. So you want to keep your message relevant as well. Not only do you want it to be timely, you want it to be relevant. So we are in a global crisis. Your communication should reflect that fact. So if you're sending out just general communications, the types of communications that you always do, you want to be considering modifying those communications to talk about the fact that we are in a global crisis. To ignore that makes you seem disingenuous, makes you seem disconnected from the realities that we're living in. So your messaging should be authentic, timely, relevant to your constituents, and you should demonstrate how your organization is providing real world solutions in a time of great need. So I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that I'm most encouraged about during this crisis is the great ingenuity we are seeing among our companies, our institutions, our not-for-profits out there, all our different types of sectors in terms of the way they are responding to this and helping to provide solutions. So let's take a look at some of the ways that maybe you guys are providing solutions. We have a number of frontline responders out there who are attending our session today. Not-for-profits that have people who are right on working with the most vulnerable people group out there. So that's an obvious one. Most of you that are educational institutions have student emergency funds going. Obviously, if you don't have one, you might be considering what it takes to put something like that in place. You're most likely housing foreign students who were not able to leave. So you're providing a safe place for those people as well. And there are costs associated with that. You might be housing first responders. We took a look yesterday, and a number of our colleges and university clients are taking their unused dorm space and making it available, particularly in the hotspot zones, to first responders so that they have a safe place to go to when they're not working and they're not going home to their families and putting them at risk as well. A lot of you are providing scientific research, either towards the cure or you are tracking the spread. The major tracking studies that the government has been talking about have come out of our educational institutions. And so that is a significant way you are helping in the process out there. Maybe you are providing educational resources for now stay-at-home kids. Maybe as a museum or an education department in your own organization, you are providing resources to those people who are struggling with those kids at home, trying to keep them in some sort of learning environment. And that is a significant way that you are helping in this process. Maybe you are doing early graduation for your nursing and other medical professionals. In other words, accelerating the process to get them into the workforce, or making special provisions in order to get them graduated and out into a working environment. Or maybe you're providing emotional support. We have a couple of humane societies and things like that that are participating in our presentation to do today as well. And foster pet care is a very important part of that process as well. In terms of, I just heard yesterday in Chicago that all of the pet, what are they called? The places where you go for the emergency pets, sorry about that.
Shelter.
The shelters, there you go. Thank you. All of them are completely, all of the animals have been put out to people who need that kind of emotional support. So that's an encouraging thing as well. So it's quite likely that you are providing support through your institutions that may or you may not know about. So we want to talk about that with our donors. And to do that, we're going to show you a couple examples of how to do that. The first one is ThankView videos. Now, I know a lot of you are already clients of ThankView. ThankView is not part of PledgeMine, it's a separate organization out there. And when we get to the sharing time, if you want to share some of your great ideas for ThankView videos, I would encourage that. It is an ability to send customized videos out through email to your constituent files or sections of your constituent files. Here's what I like about it. There's a huge emphasis on community there, and it's personal outreach, particularly to major donors. So if your advancement staff is out there and they're saying, hey, I can't go talk to my major donors out there, ThankView videos are a great way to do that. Let's see if we can watch a little bit of this video from Pepperdine University. See if this comes up. Bethany, are you seeing it?
Yeah, I am.
Great.
During this time of uncertainty, we hope you're finding grace amid your most challenging moments. We miss seeing you at events, visiting our office, and connecting with you in person. And we're sending our prayers to all those being impacted by this ongoing event. While it seems like things are constantly changing, we're still inspired by our alumni every day. The Seaver and George Pepperdine College Alumni Relations team is choosing to approach this uncharted territory as an opportunity to connect even more with our alumni and to be creative in how we can be social from a distance. We want your ideas.
So I'm just going to pause that for a minute here and go back to the presentation and say, if you want to see that whole video, we're going to include a link with it in the PowerPoint presentation. We're going to send this to you after the presentation so that you can all see that. I think it's a great example. I just got an email from them as well today saying that they were going to offer some solutions as replacements to those of you who have had your giving days. either canceled or postponed, as an opportunity to reach out to those donors as well in a very personalized way. So if you're not participating with ThankView, contact them. They've got some great solutions out there. It's not expensive. You can be doing those types of things as well. But another example that we wanted to share with you was just a simple email. And this is even an email that we did not do through PledgeMine. PledgeMine has the ability to do emails, and we're happy to do that. But this is an email that Hope College put out, and I just saw that Amy is on board with us today, and so maybe she can talk a little bit about some of the efforts they're doing when we do the open share time. But this is an example that I got from Hope College, which is my alumni, on Monday of this week. And here's what I like about this particular email. It's from the president. It demonstrates how Hope is providing real-world solutions. So down here at the bottom, you can see all the different types of ways that they're providing some solutions in terms of helping in this environment, including they've got their digital printers out here, which they call their maker bots, printing face mask shield support pieces that they're getting over to the local hospital there in Holland, Michigan, that they're working at. So it's a great example. There is a button on here so that people can give. So that's always an opportunity to do that as well. And so if you're not doing emails like this to inform your constituents of what you're doing as an institution, you should be doing that. PledgeMine would be available to help unless you have your own solutions in terms of that. Most of you do. And so feel free to, I think Amy would be happy to say, feel free to use any language that you see in an email like this. Obviously, you got to customize it for what you're doing in your own institution, but copy the ideas. The one great thing about us working together in this sector is that we're really not in competition with each other. So if it works for one of us, it's probably going to work well for another one. So I'm going to end up my section of this beginning part of the conversation by just saying, remember this, people out there want to help. Social isolation is frustrating. It's frustrating to you. It's frustrating to your donors out there. They want to participate and find ways that they can help. Because they are confined to their homes, probably their best and only way to help is to contribute financially. So you want to remind them that they are part of your community, and you want to give them a chance to respond. And maybe that response is just in terms of a connection, like we saw in the Pepperdine ThankView video, or maybe it's financial. Don't presuppose that they don't want to give or they can't give, because many of them can and many of them will. So now Bethany's going to jump on board here and show us some specific ways that we put together in the PledgeMine world, some specific examples that are ready to go, and you are free to copy, and we can get you going in terms of any of these ideas that you like. So Bethany, I'll control the slides. You just tell me when to
Got it. Going. All right. Hi, everybody. For those of you that I haven't met virtually, my name is Bethany Barwegen. I'm the Vice President of PledgeMine. And like John said, we're all kind of dealing with this together. It's a global crisis. One thing that I will say as a positive about this whole thing is that truly everybody is looking for the feedback and the input from everybody that PledgeMine is working with. So what we're trying to do is provide solutions that work with PledgeMine's set of products that we provide, and just some possible suggestions as to what can be done. This is not obviously a totally expansive list. And also, just a side note, when you receive the samples, I am not a copywriter. So you know, that a lot of the text of what we've put together has been inspired by other communication that we've received, as well as other things that we've just kind of had communication about. So one of the things that is quite unique to PledgeMine in what we do, and a lot of you are aware of it and already using it, is our small batch multi-drop on-demand ordering system. It has a lot of names. And one of the reasons why this can be so beneficial to institutions is that we want to be sensitive, but we also want to be reactive to what different people and their giving habits. So one of the examples of being able to use that, and I know several of our customers that have joined on this call, is an anniversary card. We want to, first of all, in the language of anniversary cards, or really anything that you're sending, as John mentioned, be sensitive to the current financial situation of donors, and also use this as an opportunity as a touch point for them at a time when they're usually already thinking about the college or the rescue mission or anything like that, working around their schedule, but also making sure that we're catering our message to people in their current situation. So that's one way that you're able to use on-demand services to be able to help out with what you're trying to do. One other thing that kind of came up before we were putting this presentation together is the possibility of, if you have a fiscal year end appeal, or maybe it's just a summer, spring appeal, using that as an opportunity to take the anniversary concept and use PledgeMine's on-demand services to possibly send things out in waves. When people are used to giving, sending batches out, and then maybe the remainder of people that haven't received it yet, closer to when your original drop for that fiscal year end or spring appeal or something like that would happen. So, and John, if you want to go to the next slide.
Getting there.
Vanna White, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you. So one of the ways that a lot of our customers use our on-demand services is through pledge follow-up pieces, phone-a-thon related, sometimes just regular stewardship, and given the conversations that I've had with a lot of our customers in the last 2 to 3 weeks is that's an area where there's a lot of frustration and questions at this point, is because phone-a-thons are shut down. We can't have kids coming in and calling people for donations. And one of the things that can be done is to still utilize PledgeMine profiles. So for those of you that don't use that, you can create a profile for each one of your student callers, upload a photo, some content about them. So what we have brainstormed and thought about is being able to still use those profiles to communicate with donors, but instead of a reactive way where you are following up on conversations that have been had, instead of using it proactively, communicating with your core groups, those people, maybe it's your very loyal donors that you call really at very specific times of the year. Perhaps you already called them in the fall, but using it as a touch point. And also, one of the benefits of this is that obviously students are hit very hard with losing their money-making abilities and their jobs. So we want to empower the student callers as well to be able to use that information as well. And so it doesn't have to be a solicitation like John flipped to here. It can also just be a touch point of, hey, this is what's going on with our student callers. You're already in communication with them. And even just a selfie like we've got right here of some students, being able to use them in that way and empower them in that way. John, did you want to jump in at all? Anything about voice over IP?
Yeah, well, just, I know a lot of you are frustrated because your phone-a-thon programs have been put on pause, or at least at the best. We have been in contact with some of the providers, the software providers, people like RNL and things like that out there, and they've probably been telling you this as well. But they are working diligently on solutions that will allow your students to call safely from home through a VPN or a voice over IP type connection. Those are coming, but it's going to take them a little while to get those up and running and tested, fully tested. So in the meantime, I think this is an excellent way that you can communicate with your donors through your students to let them know about what's going on for them. They're frustrated too because learning from home, learning remotely is difficult as well. And so to share that part of their story and to stay connected in your community in this way is a really positive way to reach out and communicate. So if you're not doing student profiles now, we're here to help you set those up and get going. All you need to do is contact your CSR and tell them that's something you'd like to do. We obviously need to get those stories and those photos from you, but they're easy things for you to collect and get going, and we can start to design some communications around that
Yeah.
that you can utilize. So.
Yeah, and there's actually, for those, well, everybody here, existing PledgeMine clients, if you're curious about anything that we bring up that maybe you haven't had exposure to before, a couple months ago, we added a PledgeMine manual to everybody's dashboard. So there's a section there on caller profiles in case you're curious, you want to know more information. Like John said, you've got a client services rep, please feel free to ask them any questions. But what's nice about the caller profiles is that you can set that up yourself. So normally we like to say, get some nice pictures in front of a landmark for the school, but we're selfies are probably actually the most appropriate and accurate representation of life as a student right now. So just encouraging that.
And I'll just jump in and say the young lady with the cat, that's my daughter. So you don't have to make these things formal. The more authentic, the better, I think.
Yep, great. And John touched on this already, but when we're talking about how to communicate with people, digital outreach is still super important. But what we want to make sure is that we're trying to not lean in one way or the other. Digital and physical communication are both super important. I know that I personally have received an email from every service that I have ever ordered something from or subscribed to in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And so right now, we're receiving this huge influx of digital communication. So we want to just try and make sure we're following that up. Now it can be digital first and then physical, or if you want to do it vice versa, just following up one with the other. So one of the ways that PledgeMine does support this is that we can, obviously we can send physical pieces, we can send emails, and also design any retargeting ads that you'd want to use, say Google AdWords or any other service. We know that PledgeMine doesn't touch all those points, but we can absolutely facilitate that. And positively in that respect is having the same designer use the same set of tools and images and everything like that to help create a cohesive communication for you to be able to send out. So like I said before, we've got a couple more examples. I'm not a professional copywriter, so I apologize. But a lot of this customers are already doing, but everybody, in the interest of sharing some ways that you can kind of make sure that you are communicating with people right away. There's been kind of what feels like a little bit of a just pause in the atmosphere of PledgeMine clients, at least, and annual giving in general and fundraising, in that everyone just goes, we don't know what to do with this. But there are definitely ways that we can communicate with donors and with potential donors, just to give information. Obviously, if you want to follow up on scheduled pledges with maybe it's a postcard, maybe it's a self-mailer or an email or something like that, that's obviously income that the institution is looking for in the budget. So that's always something important. Donor financial situations might have changed at a certain point, but we want to make sure that we're sensitive to that. But also not just following up on scheduled pledges, but also maybe any event updates or updates with the institution. Those can be super important as well. The other, really any type of non-soliciting, that's not a word, soliciting, but type of format can be good for this. And maybe it's something how to get involved, or just an informational insert. I know that Miriam Battles, I think Oakwood University, I don't know if you're on here, but one of the things that when you signed up for the webinar that was brought up was an informational insert as to how to protect yourself and just getting that information out there. So then, and also it looks like we had a question come in, how PledgeMine's capability create design versus clients needing to complete design for mail and email pieces. So we can work with anybody that would like to design a piece themselves. PledgeMine obviously provides a comprehensive type of service if it's needed, but we work well with others. So if you are interested in that, then we work with by sending InDesign files to your design staff so that they can actually put your own designs in there. So that's totally an option. When it comes to messaging, I know looks like there's a question from Molly, right, Erica?
Yes, I was just about to interrupt you. Wanted to finish.
I had the chat window open. Sorry.
Yeah. So Molly is wondering, what's your advice on messaging since they can't seem to get ahead of it enough to send a direct mail piece, and she's particularly asking about campus updates.
Mm-hmm. It's a good question. As far as how to change messaging, I don't know, John, do you have any input on that?
Well, I think that is a frustration, definitely, but I don't think that should keep you from trying to get that information out. So obviously, the quicker you can do an update, and obviously digital is probably the best, quickest way to get that message out. But if you can follow up your digital with a simple postcard or a self-mailer type option, these are options that PledgeMine can get out the door quickly for you. And so you're not necessarily going to be, by the time this gets in home, completely out of touch, completely out of date. I also think in your messaging, you should just be honest about that and say, hey, at the time we are writing this letter to you or writing this message to you, this is what our current situation is, but we're trying to adapt and change as quickly as possible, as the rest of you are as well. We're starting to settle into a bit of more of a norm here, where we're all sort of realizing that, hey, we're going to be spending the next number of weeks, if not months, working from home. Our students are obviously going to, most of us, they're going to finish their semester this year or finish their year learning from home. And so there are some things that have started to become more of a reality and more of a norm for us. And so you can feel a little bit more comfortable about talking about those kinds of things as you go forward. So
yeah, and one of the a good suggestion that that our client services team is communicating about also is with PledgeMine's ability to do things using our on-demand product and service. What we could do for anybody that needed to would be to set up, maybe it is an informational postcard where we create it so that the text, the main body is set up through segmentation. And then once you get the shell put together, all we would need is every time you want to send a new one, just say, hey, here's the new text. We load it in there. And we might not even have to do an exchange of proofs if it's ready to go and it's easy to plug in there, then our customers can just take their list, upload it, and get it sent out, and we'll get it out the door. So that would be a nice way to be able to set up a variable postcard that could be used. And like John said, just maybe adding a note. This was written on April 8th, 2020, so things might have changed since then. One of the benefits of postcards, specifically the smaller size, a 4x6 postcard, is that you can send it at the quicker mail rate of first class for cheaper, because the post office incentivizes that. So if you were looking to get something in hands as quick as possible, a 4-inch by 6-inch postcard sent at the first class rate would be something that could be a really good option. And as far as other content, maybe it's not just specifically updates on what's going on with the institution as a whole. One of the things that, as we've been discussing on our side, is really focusing on anything healthcare related, not just for the purpose of fundraising for the entire institution, but also we want to make sure that we're supporting the next generation of healthcare workers. So maybe obviously it's an entire school of medicine, a healthcare related department, something like that, where we can make sure that we are raising money in those departments where it really is makes the most difference in the current environment. And maybe that's could just be highlighting a pre-med student as well. Let's say if you're a liberal arts institution or something like that. John touched on this as well, but this is kind of just our little example. What is your organization doing to help contribute? People might not be making the connection of, well, what good is my $25 gift going to do? You know, it just goes into some big pot and I don't know what happens with it. And this is a struggle I know that happens a lot. This is a conversation that we see all the time, with a slight twist right now, because we're providing those specific opportunities for people to give. So maybe you're not able to set up a student emergency fund, but you can set up a landing page where people can make a donation specifically going to whatever thing that the organization's working on.
All right, we are to our open sharing time now, and we have about 20 more minutes to do that. And so the way this is going to work is if you have a question or you want to answer a question or you have an opinion like, I don't think what John and Bethany said makes sense at all.
Don't let me in with that.
Feel free to do that. So what you can do is there's the ability in Zoom to raise your hand. Erica's going to watch that, and if you raise your hand, we will acknowledge the fact that you're gonna that you have something that you'd like to share, and we will unmute you unless you don't want to be unmuted. If you don't want to be unmuted, then you can still put your questions in the group chat, like Molly has been doing so far. And so let's jump into it. And because you didn't know this was going to happen, we did have a few questions that were asked during the registration process. So Erica or Bethany, can you read those questions, and especially if we haven't specifically answered them already? So.
Yeah, I can jump in with one. One of the questions that was brought up was about commencement. Those have been postponed, they're going virtual. How can our PledgeMine partners try to cultivate community and engage with the new class when they're already coming out of graduation in a strange place?
Well, I'd love to see some other people chime in on this question. What are you guys doing with your commencement programs, and specifically, how does that relate to this year's graduating class? I would say this: it's probably too early to be hitting up your graduating class seniors in terms of asking them to participate in any sort of alumni giving. Probably that should wait till the fall or something along those lines, where you can point back to them of how the school responded to them and their specific unique needs. Obviously, they're hurting because they were looking forward to graduation commencement ceremonies. Hopefully, many of you guys can do something virtually in terms of that, or reschedule to later in the summer and still allow that capability. But maybe somebody out there wants to share what your school is doing, and especially if you're particularly excited about it or proud of your institution for how you're responding to that particular need.
It looks like Hope College will be doing some care calls in late May and June, and they're also putting together a virtual yearbook, which is a cool idea.
Yeah, and I've also...
Good job, Hope College. That's mine.
Yeah, and Claire over at University of Lafayette, she had a good news story that she had worked with us on PledgeMine 7J, I think, configuration. That was a note card that had a watercolor image of the top, on the top of one of the buildings on the front, and then was a perf-off postcard. I'm sure that you guys got a solutions library. You've seen that before, and got some really good feedback on that. So that's a good stewardship opportunity to just provide a touch point.
It also looks like Kimberly Hoyt is saying that they're going to encourage alumni to give 20 words of encouragement to the class of 2020.
Oh, fantastic. That's a great idea.
And Angela Jarvis says, we are also encouraging alum to give 20 words for the class of 2020. We've moved our commencement to late summer, early fall, possible, with a virtual commencement as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, good question, Molly, about the a solution that would work really well for that. A lot of them, as kind of a good point. Really, almost everything that we do does have a tear off. If it doesn't have the ability to do that, then it's the client services reps usually let our customers know. But if it's 20, words of encouragement, then I know that, well, speaking as a millennial, I suppose, I'm not a super recent grad, but self-mailers tend to do really well with that type of audience. They have the perf tear off. So PledgeMine maybe solution 1I, if you've seen that horizontal trifold format, or a bifold version of that, the 1C, could be really beneficial in speaking with our production team. Also, PledgeMine's 1T format, which is it's 8.5 by 12. That's a self mailer, but it is really nice. Folds in thirds. Could be really good too.
One more idea that just came in from Elizabeth. She said that they are planning a year zero reunion for homecoming in November, and they're going to have special events and recognition for the class of 2020 throughout the entire weekend.
Fantastic. Great idea. Okay. Other questions from the group, or?
Getting a lot of feedback, which is great. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, just got another one. Centenary College sent out a thank you to their Gold alumni and trustees to invite them to send a video reply offering words of congratulations, encouragement to our graduating class. This is one way we will digitally celebrate commencement on our regular scheduled date, and they've postponed the traditional ceremony until August for now.
Fantastic. So another great use of thank you.
And if you're not a current thank you customer, I mean, their product is great, and you want to utilize your PledgeMine contract, we can, if you were to say host or take just even a video of somebody with a similar messaging that you wanted to link and maybe just host it on the institution's YouTube page, we can always create a link to a video like that. One of the things that it seems like we're hearing a lot is just for the class of 2020 community. Maybe it is welcoming them into some sort of alumni group with that words of encouragement, or something like that. Just a touch point to help them get into being a part of that group.
Fantastic. Anybody want to be unmuted and share in non-written format?
I don't see any raised hands yet, so I don't think anybody wants to talk.
Nobody's willing to do that. It's not as intimidating as you think it might be.
Oh,
Molly does. All right, Molly, I'm unmuting you. Oh, there you go. Wait. Did I lose you?
it looks like Molly's still muted.
Myself. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. I have to unmute myself, by the way.
Yes, good.
Okay.
You don't need me.
Thanks you guys for doing this. One of the things, and we've been working closely with our rep, so hey, we did have a reunion scheduled for early May. And when I say a reunion, I mean 13 different milestones going on the campus all at the same time. We should have also had a giving day on April 2nd. So traditionally what we've done is a reunion gift letter with 13 different versions going out right before giving day, and then you know, maybe a week or so before, and then an email on the giving day to encourage reunion giving. So that all got put on hold. And as Melina knows, we're just really struggling with now messaging. Reunion is not going to happen. They're going to cluster next spring with the next reunions. So we're just really struggling with messaging about, you know, being sensitive to, gosh, we want you to contribute to a class gift, but you're not going to have a reunion. We're going to ask you to come back next year. We don't want to ask them twice. And we're just really struggling with that. So I don't know if any other participants have come up with good messaging for the kind of bummer of, we don't have reunion, but we'd still like your support.
Anybody else want to jump in on that? Sometimes at PledgeMine, we're a little disconnected with the messaging themes and how best to do that. So if you raise your hand, we'll unmute you and you can share what you guys are doing. And if not, Molly, we can do the best job we can at trying to respond.
Or the introverts method of the chat.
Yes, you can type
Usually my
something
preferred
too.
method.
I'm happy to read more.
Erica's very good at reading.
Thank you.
So this, Molly, let me ask this question. This is specifically in terms of asking for a class gift for this year's graduating class?
No, so let me be clear. What we're talking about is the milestone reunions going all the way up. We do even 65th reunions. We even have something called Silver Bulldogs, because people who've been gone for more than 65 years have said, hey, we still want to come back and participate. So the class gift, we do a competition for each reunion class. And you know, basically any gift that they give throughout the year, and there are multiple opportunities for them to give. We've already sent a reunion newsletter in the fall. We did a save the date in early January, not knowing that the date would change. So it's really a whole year push. I mean, a lot of our annual fund is tied to this reunion giving effort. There are about 3,500 people every year who would participate in some way in reunion. Only about 600 would probably come to campus. But we get, you know, probably of that 3,500, you know, we're usually right at about the 20% participation rate. And we just don't think we're going to hit that. So we're looking for messaging about, this is a special year. It's a milestone reunion. You can't come to campus, but we still need your support for the annual fund.
Mm-hmm. And then you're replacing that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. You said that you were delaying those reunions until the fall, or?
We're delaying until next spring. We have homecoming in the fall, and our school just put commencement, and we do have 3 large commencements, our College of Arts and Sciences, School of Education, and School of Business. So now we're doing homecoming and commencement all on one weekend in the fall, and that's why we've pushed our reunions. We've just delayed them by a year.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, I think you want to be honest with people about, you know, what's going on, still asking them to participate. Absolutely, you're probably going to have a decline in how many people participate, but I think it doesn't hurt to be honest with them about, you know, the frustrations that you're feeling, and that at this point, you're trying to reschedule this for a year from now. And we realize that that means people who are in special giving years or special years, special anniversary years, are going to, you know, in a sense, lose out from that because their year is basically going to be skipped. But, you know, I think you want to be honest in terms of that. Once again.
It looks like a few ideas have come in the chat while you were talking, John. We have a link
Thank
to
you.
a web page.
Thank you for bailing me out, everybody else.
Yeah, it looks like there's a web link to a challenge online for Dartmouth, and Amy from Hope is saying, what about continuing the piece and recognizing them when they come back? And then development, I don't know who development is, but Molly, could you tailor the reunion appeal to be in honor of centenary, class of 2020? So you're still asking, but also recognizing the extreme situation we are all living in.
Yeah. I think you still ask, Molly, but you do it sensitively, and you acknowledge the fact that this is unusual. Everybody understands that at this point. And I think you may get a hit on your participation, but you never know. I've been amazed at the communications that we've been sending out specifically related to this crisis, and how generous people have been. Largely because they're frustrated at home that they cannot contribute, they can't help in any way. And so the best way to help for them is to communicate through their giving. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's anything that I think that we've learned from trying to figure out some sort of, maybe not advice, but research to present to our clients, is that community is key. And John hit on that several points in the presentation. And I know that reunion classes are one of the ways that people feel community with their institution. And just because we're in a global crisis doesn't mean that community isn't still a good place for them to be able to feel that.
Yep. Any other questions, or anybody else want to jump in at this point? If not, we're close to our scheduled time here of 1 hour, which we want to be sensitive to the fact that you guys all have programs to get going. And
it looks like we have a raised hand, John.
Oh, great.
Kimberly Hoyt.
All right.
Hi, this is Kim at Dartmouth. We've all been struggling like you all have been, and we're an annual fund, and we just raise unrestricted dollars that supports financial aid. So what we've decided is just going back to that key message of supporting students, and financial aid is something that's needed now more than ever, because parents are losing their jobs. People are their budgets are going to be stretched. And so we're just going back to our original case for support instead, but also, softening the language. I did include a link to a web page in the chat there of some of the special language this particular class is using, for their fundraising campaign. But just going back to square one in your case. I mean, you have a strong case. We all have a strong case for our institutions, and just going back to that and putting it out there, and those who want to give will. So.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, I'll leave this open for a couple more minutes here. And while we're doing that, let's see, hang on a second.
While John's looking at that, in case, I know we've got a bunch of our PledgeMine client services reps on the chat too. So if you're curious to put a name to a face,
Do they all
their
have their
smiling
videos?
faces
Yeah, they do have their videos on.
Yeah, most of them.
So,
I hope that it's nice to put a name to a face too for anyone on our side too. We're all in this together, so we're just trying to figure it out.
So as a way to close, we're gonna, a couple things here. Here's a listing of additional resources that we've pulled together. These will be links in the PDF document that we'll send out to you as a follow-up to this meeting. This meeting has been recorded as well, so we'll try to get that up in some format and get you a link to that as well if there's particular people in your organization that you wish could have participated today and for whatever reason they weren't able to. And as Bethany has said, we are here to help. We want to help. Feel free to reach out to us through your CSR is probably the best way to do that. And we want to respond as quickly as possible to get these key communication messages out there. And so we're all in this together. And so thank you for participating. Bethany or Erica, was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, everyone stay healthy.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for attending. And we will continue to be in communication with you. And if there's anything specific we can do to help, let us know. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.